national broadcasting company. Now in its 7th decade of bringing you baseball's memories. Baseball's milestones. Baseball's majesty. And baseball's magical moments. NBC Sports proudly presents the Major League Baseball Game of the Week.
Today from Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium, it's the St. Louis Cardinals versus the Atlanta Braves. The Game of the Week is brought to you by Miller Brewing Company, sole sponsor of the U.S. Olympic Training Centers. By Toyota, looking out for you has made Toyota #1 in compact truck sales. By Ace Hardware Corporation, Ace is the place. And by AC Delco, the smart parts. It rained heavily this morning and early afternoon in Atlanta, but it stopped and apparently will be able to play on this July 4th. Hi, everybody. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. Today's pitching pairing, left-hander Zane Smith, 8-4 for the season for Atlanta, and Danny Cox, 7-3 for St. Louis, each with an ERA around 4 a game. The series opened here last night with the Cards pounding the Braves 9-1, another homer and 4 more RBIs for Jack Clark. He leads the majors in runs batted in, and he's tied with Dale Murphy of the Braves for the National League home run leadership at 24. Meanwhile, in Cincinnati, the Reds were beating the Mets, and so the Cardinals' lead is now 6 over New York in the National League East. The Braves have fallen to 4 under 500. That's the furthest beneath 500 they have been so far this year. Let's go down on the field. Here's Tony Kubek.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Ozzie, the great shortstops, to name just a few, like Luis Aparicio, Mark Belanger, yourself, have something that nobody else does, a sixth sense. Explain this.
Well, in my explanation, what I try to do when we talk about this, and this is a question that, comes up occasionally, sixth sense is something I think that has to do with seeing a play before it happens, or playing the play over in your mind, anticipating what could possibly happen. Sometimes in situations I say to myself, like last night, for instance, what I said to myself, that if this ball is hit to my left, what am I going to do? If it's hit to my right, what am I going to do? Who's running on first? Who's at third? Who's at second? That's the way I would explain my sixth sense.
So when you, Dorothy, and Toto came back after the thundercloud, you didn't bring something special back with you?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I didn't bring anything special back. It was just that sixth sense that I had and I've always had.
Now you've got the sixth sense with your bat. You've bulked up a little bit. You're hitting the ball harder. You're driving in runs, which has got to be kind of a pleasure for you this year.
Well, Tony, you know what? I've always taken a lot of pride in is driving in runs. I've never really hit for a high average, but for a number 8 hitter, I've always driven in over 50, 55 runs a year, and I'd taken a lot of pride in that, and this year was no different. I think the thing that's special about it is that I'm hitting in the number 2 spot.
Well, may the force stay with you, whatever that force is. Thank you, Ozzie. We'll be back to Atlanta in the starting lineup right after this.
Zane Smith takes his 8-4 record to the mound to face this lineup. Vince Coleman, whose 51 steals lead the majors. He swiped one last night. Ozzie Smith, the Wizard of Oz, as so aptly described by Tony Kubek in his pregame interview, will be at shortstop. Tommy Herr at second base. Jack Clark tied with Dale Murphy atop the National League with 24 homers. All the rest of the Cardinals combined have 25, so he has just about half of his team's total. And only 15 homers other than those hit by Jack Clark represented in today's St. Louis lineup. Willie McGee in center field hitting 5th. Terry Pendleton at third base. Jim Lindemann has just been reactivated. He's been on the disabled list twice this year, once with a hamstring pull, most recently with back spasms. And when they brought him back, they released the veteran outfielder Tito Landrum. Steve Lake is the catcher in place of Tony Pena, day game after a night game. And Danny Cox, with a record of 7-3, will pitch for St. Louis.
Chuck Tanner's Braves have been hit by injuries. Ken Griffey in left field playing with a slightly bad back. Deion James in center. Dale Murphy appears to be a little tired now. He's looking for the all-star break, but he'll be in it. But playing very well. A little bit of a slump in right. Nettles at third. They miss Obergfell both defensively and his on-base percentage. Andres Thomas, playing with a bad ankle, is short. Hubbard playing with 2 bad ankles at second base, having an outstanding year. Gerald Perry at first. Ozzie Virgil having a big home run year behind the plate. Catching the left-hander, Zane Smith. And Bob, some people feel if there's any way to hold the Cardinals down is to throw a left-hander out.
Well, you make the switch hitters turn around to the right side and have a little better chance to hold the speedsters at first base. Smith throws a slider and curve, but his best pitch is probably his sinking fastball. They're pitching this ballpark. It always has been, and you throw in the suspicious, lively baseball of this season, an even better idea to keep it low in 87. Well, Coleman keeps it on the ground and sends the first pitch into center field for a hit.
He's been caught 10 times.
Vince Coleman 7. He works to the plate, and here's a drive to left that Griffey will have, and Vince Coleman returns to first. Tom Herr this year, a game-winning grand slam off Jesse Orosco of the Mets.
Great base stealer, really slows the pace of the game down. He's behind another hit. He was to Ozzie Smith also.
There he goes on this one, swing and a miss. Throw from Virgil, in there, and it was close. Virgil with a good throw, but Coleman beat it.
Just distracts Ozzie Virgil a little bit. May have bumped him or at least obstructed his view, and that was the difference. I mean, the second half of that was just extraordinary, the way he just accelerated. When he knew he had a bad jump, it looked like he put her in second gear and he was off.
Pitch to Tommy Herr. And Coleman breaks for third, and it's hit through the middle. Hubbard backhands.
He's coming home.
Herr's going to beat it. Coleman to the plate. Safe. Oh, man, is that scintillating baseball. Kept Coleman at third.
The ball wasn't hit hard. It was a jam shot with Coleman on the move. And because it was a jam shot, I believe Hubbard felt there's no way he could get a good jump out of the box. He could get nothing on the throw. Nick Leyva, the third base, said, go on in. And there he goes. Coleman had to be pointed out to him where the ball was by Nick Leyva. And as soon as Nick Leyva pointed that the ball was in the middle of the diamond.
More RBIs last night. He leads the league in RBIs. He leads in walks. He's tied for first in homers. He's second in slugging percentage and in runs. He's third in on-base percentage, and he's among the leaders in batting average. The last time anyone drove in as many runs as Clark's present pace, you got to go back almost 50 years. Here's a shot toward the gap in right center, but Murphy's going to be there, and he makes the catch. The question, but it tells you how hot he's been and how many of his mates have been aboard to give him a chance to knock him home to the opposite field on pitches they've been fooled on, or send guys to the warning track with check swings. Herr off again, and McGee strikes out. But the speed of Vince Coleman, a single, a stolen base, and then racing home on an infield hit by Tom Herr, gives the Cardinals the early lead. 27-year-old Danny Cox, who's from Warner Robins, Georgia, about 100 miles south of Atlanta, faces this lineup: Deion James in center field, Andres Thomas, who will be the shortstop almost every day, with Rafael Ramirez added to the list of Braves casualties. Chuck Tanner says in all his years of managing, he's never seen a rash of injuries such as the series of misfortunes that have hit the Braves this year. Perry at first, Murphy in right, Griffey in left. Nettles, playing his 9th consecutive game at age 42, is at third. Ken Obergfell is another on the DL. Ozzie Virgil will catch. Glenn Hubbard at second. Smith the pitcher. Field his last 3 times out. He's had no decisions.
Morning.
Ooh.
He's modified his stance again, I see.
Here's Herr from the outfield grass to throw him out.
Deion James had gotten that stance from out of the Brewers organization, watching Cecil Cooper.
Andres Thomas sent a shot up the middle with the bases loaded in the 8th last night, and it turned into just another installment in the ongoing Ozzie Smith highlight film.
It's at least 2 runs, probably first and third. The Atlanta Braves are looking to get right back in the ball game. And I don't know if it was Whitey said a bunch of years ago before the $2 million contract, Ozzie says 100, 150 runs. People doubted it. Maybe he does.
Let's see if Lake has the room. No, he doesn't. And I'll tell you what, there's an interesting call possibly for the plate umpire, Randy Marsh. You see the gentleman down there, the security guard, who got in Lake's way. The catch was a virtual certainty without the interference. Then he could rule the automatic out. But since it would have been a tough play, Thomas is allowed to hit, and down he goes.
There's the great change. That is a change off the breaking ball by Danny Cox.
Perry bounces one slowly to third. Pendleton has a tough play, bare hands, but won't throw.
Hitting in front of Dale Murphy. They think he will someday.
Despite those imposing figures, Murphy's in his first slump of the season. He's just 4 for his last 33. Yeah, because he only went to arbitration, didn't truly sign a new contract with the Tigers. He'll be a free agent again. A lot of interesting names out there. Mike Schmidt, well, for that matter.
We got to stop using the terminology free agent because there hasn't been the last 2 years.
Something's fishy there for sure. So an infield hit by Perry and a walk to Murphy on 4 pitches. Ball 1 to him. The Braves have been lagging in terms of attendance. In fact, their average is the lowest in the National League, and only Seattle in all of baseball has drawn fewer on average, but they had a huge crowd last night.
Right. Have some kind of movement. Tail away, sink sometimes, and come in on the fists of a left-hander.
Breaking ball low, and he walks the bases loaded now. After Perry hit that little nubber down the third baseline on which Pendleton had no play, considered third with Thomas playing short. Nettles has become, in essence, an everyday player, and he has hits in 8 of his last 19 at-bats. An 85 for the Reds. 2-1 pitch is drilled to right, but Lindemann is there, and the Cards are out of the inning. Lindemann had him played almost on the warning track, had to come in a few steps to make the catch, and the Braves leave 3. It's in memory for filling out all-star rosters fairly. Schmidt's going to start at third. And here's a ball whacked through the hole on the right side for a leadoff hit. So the Cards have the leadoff man on 2 straight times.
Let's get through. Hubbard right there was playing a little shallow for Pendleton and his speed, and he sneaked it by him.
Not to mention the movement in the middle of the diamond when runners are taking off to hold on to. Pennant-winning homer for the Orioles against the White Sox in '83. Here's a bouncer to third. Nettles on the second hop, looks for the force and gets it at second base. First few games of the World Series against Kansas City.
That last ball hit to Nettles 5-6 years ago. He's got that a hop or 2 sooner. That's a double play.
And LaVallier's been a revelation behind the plate. Lake with the walk on 4 pitches. So the Cards
pitcher up next.
Have 2 on with 1 out, and Cox will come up in a sacrifice situation. You know, you talk about the all-star catcher spot. Gary Carter's going to win the vote.
But now, too. He'd have got it to the left side. He can run all day.
Now he squares, misses the bunt. Throw behind. They got him at second base. Lindemann was out there in no man's land, and Virgil cuts him down.
And you're dead duck.
And here's a little tapper. Thomas at shortstop goes to first, and that takes care of Danny Cox. Lindemann was hung up so far out there that Virgil had to double pump, waiting for Thomas to get back, and still had time to throw him out. Card threat goes by the boards. One happened right here in this ballpark, actually spread over 2 days. 19-inning game between the Mets and Braves, and this was the most astonishing part of it. Rick Camp in the 17th inning. Look at Danny Heap out there on the warning track. He was the Mets left fielder. The Braves were down to their last out, trailing by 2 runs. They had no pinch hitters left, and they had to let Rick Camp back for himself, and he unloads a home run to tie the game again. The Mets eventually won it in 19 innings. The game began on July 3rd, ended in the wee hours of July 4th.
3:30 in the morning, wasn't it?
There was about an hour-and-a-half, 2-hour rain delay mixed in, and after it was all over, since they had promised the fans there would be a fireworks display, they set off the skyrockets at about 4 in the morning and woke up half the neighborhood. Yielded better than 6 earned runs an outing against the Cardinals. Here's a high drive to left center, but it's not going to make the track. Willie McGee is over for the catch.
Best of all time. Jack Clark not exactly a gazelle at first, but her
average reflexive. Came in at 301. Fastball in on his fists, weakly to the right side. Lindemann is in for the catch. Talk about those fine defensive infields.
Now Moose is sitting back there in Chicago.
Minutes to play the first 2 innings of this game. Tries to drag a bunt. It's not bad, but Cox comes up with it and gets him at first base. So we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. In fact, Ozzie, who has hit as many as 6 in a season, that was back in '85, hasn't hit a home run in his last 822 at-bats, dating back to the 5th game of the 1985 playoffs against the Dodgers. And this is the only homer Ozzie has ever hit left-handed. Tom Niedenfuhr, the victim, and it's gone in the 9th inning to give the Cardinals the game and a 3-2 edge in the National League playoffs. Took out the San Francisco Giants, shutting them out for the 2nd time this season. But he took out Billy Williams. And this is the last thing he wanted to do. He walks Vince Coleman to start the inning, and you can almost hear Chuck Tanner moaning all the way up here.
14 times, but walked 45 and over 300 plate appearances. The only team in the major leagues over 100 so far. San Diego has 99.
Bounce to third. Nettles looks for the force and gets it. Hubbard turns the double play. You don't do that often with Coleman aboard and Ozzie at the plate. 6 straight years stealing 200. You got to go back to the Cubs, as Herr grounds one to Hubbard, and his opposite number will throw him out. The Cubs at the turn of the century, and the Ty Cobb-led Tigers around 1910 or so. The Cards are in a class of their own when it comes to speed, and they lead 1-0 here. Up with Albert Hall sidelined by a knee injury as Tony.
You've got some good arms and some good kids down in the AA level, so they're trying to rebuild this farm system. So many of the outstanding prospects didn't pan out. The Brad Comets, Terry Harper.
That the Braves considered a package involving comments to the...
When he overthrows finishing off hitters, they want to make sure that if he's going to waste one, waste it bad out of the strike zone.
Got him for the 2nd straight time.
He had him so confused. Took
Out as far as 3rd in that first inning as the Braves left the bases loaded in their best chance so far against Danny Cox. And the Dodgers are 7.5 behind. Going not totally out of it with the runner going. Here's a duplication of the hit in the first inning. Pendleton stumbled trying to charge it, but he couldn't have gotten him anyway. And what are the odds on that? In 2 consecutive at-bats, to place the ball in the same spot unintentionally like that.
Then he starts swinging at some bad pitches.
In the dirt, Lake blocks it. Play at third.
Got the umpire.
Everybody's safe. Lake did a good job first of blocking it to prevent it from going all the way back, and then scrambling to recover it to get off his throw.
1-2.
And he got him to swing at a pitch out of the strike zone. 3rd strikeout for Danny Cox, and Murphy is shaking his head. And they're not going to fool around. They give him the last ball intentionally and load the bases.
Well, Whitey said, hey, what the heck? See now, if he with the bases loaded, he can get ahead of a hitter and throw some strikes. Nettle.
And this one is lofted to left. It's pretty deep, but Coleman has room.
He got away with a bad pitch. Hanging breaking ball.
2nd time, Cox has been able to retire Nettles with the bases loaded. So the Braves have stranded 6. They have nothing to show for it. And here's a look back now at a very special Olympic moment. Eric Davis has 23. Consecutive nights at Riverfront, Davis takes homers away from Clark. He gets on the trampoline and yanks this one back, denying Jack the Ripper another homer. And here's the next night, just in case you didn't believe it the first time. Hello. Otherwise, Clark could have 26 and the leadership all to his own.
far off the plate, use a 34-inch, 32, sometimes 31-ounce bat.
Look at that uppercut swing, even on a pitch down around his ankles. In center field, Dion James for the easy catch. He's hitting around 380 his last 25 games or so, and he's on nearly an RBI per game pace in that span.
Now, they burned out from the big gala of last night, the fireworks and the pregame show that lasted about an hour.
Although Willie doesn't strike out that often, he struck out twice today. And the payoff. Breaking ball, numbered down to first. Perry unassisted. Perfect inning for Zane Smith. To the last half of the fourth. And it's still 1-0 St. Louis. There's Ozzie Virgil in the last half of the fourth. Danny nursing a 1-0 lead. And a curveball for a strike.
Pat Perry and Worrell struggle a little bit, but boy, their bullpen's been pretty good.
He got in on him, and Cox is going to make the catch himself.
And even with all the injuries you just rattled by that the Cardinals have had, they haven't had as many of their pitching staff as Davy Johnson, and now they've got all that turmoil with everybody shouting to everybody else. I think they need a social worker to come in and sit down with Davy Johnson and his team and say, folks, let's start getting together. Let's
raw numbers on the team ERA being high. Everything is relative, and scoring is up in both leagues this year. This one is lined to right. We told you about Hubbard going more to the opposite field. He was hung up too much on pulling the ball, and while he has better power than his size would indicate, he might hit 240, 250 and pop 8 or 9 homers. Tried to drag a bunt for a hit his last time. Now in a sacrifice situation, he pops it up. Lake has it. Swing and a miss with the runner going, and Hubbard, as you see, still has no stolen bases. That'll do it in the last half of the fourth, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. Commissioner. He's the commissioner of the exclusive Judy Club. Now, in order to belong to this club, you got to wear a Cardinal uniform and have fewer than 5 home runs for the season. Ford has 3, hit a couple the other night in Montreal, and Lake and Pena each have 1, so the whole Judy Club, all the others without a homer, has just 5 home runs and better than 1,000 total at-bats.
Which you were at Syracuse, I understand.
Split season concept eliminated them in '81, and they did win it all in '82. In the air to shallow right. Murphy got a late break on it, but he has time as it hangs up there, and he makes the catch. Then with a drastically different club, they win the pennant in '85 and have a 3-1 lead on KC in the series before the Royals came back. Traded, very popular fixture in St. Louis, now in the Atlanta dugout as a pinch hitter, Ted Simmons. And boy, that raised a ruckus when he did it. Slap to Perry, but he makes a nice catch on the liner. Blake tried to go the other way. Perry foils it. The Mets are at Cincinnati tonight. John Mitchell 1-1 against Bill Gullickson, who's 7-5. Reds beat them last night 8-3. Into right center field, Dion James dives and can't get it. Extra bases. Murphy has to chase it to the track. How much does Cox want to run? Enough to try for a triple, and he's going to make it.
One more hitter this inning, and perhaps one more later on in the ball game, and it could get worse. Cardinals sometimes only give you 1 or 2 outs in an inning. Defense with not as much speed as Atlanta. Sometimes they give you 4 outs.
This is a very hot, very humid day. 1-3-2. Breaking ball is punched into left, and it's going to drop for a hit. So the 2-out triple by Cox proves to be a very big hit. Coleman scored the first run. He drives home the second, and it's 2-0 Cardinals. 2 for 2 in this series. 1 last night, 1 today on attempted steals. He bluffs the go, and Smith hammers one to center. Back goes Dion James, and he can't get it. It bounces up against the fence, which is a break for the Cardinals because it almost bounced over. in which case Coleman would have had to stop. Now he's able to score easily. It's another RBI for Ozzie. His 43rd of the season, 3-0 St. Louis.
So you just had a chance to see how much that man, Vince Coleman, means to the number 2 hitter, Ozzie Smith.
They've only affected his throws from the hole on defense as Jim Acker gets ready.
And the same thing happened with Tony Fernandez with the Toronto Blue Jays. He'd had some weakness in his shoulder, and he wanted to really strengthen the shoulder for throwing.
2-2 pitch. Slow roller, second base, and Hubbard throws him out. But after 2 out, a triple by Cox, a single by Coleman to drive him home, a double by Ozzie to plate Vince Coleman. Full count now to Deion James. Cox working with a 3-0 lead. But he himself helped to build with the triple in the top half of this inning, and he walks James. That's his 5th walk. If Cox can walk Thomas, he will have accomplished something. Last year, in about 350 at-bats, Thomas had 8 walks. Fans getting into a wave in the background. Thomas pokes it through the right side. James rounds second and holds, so they'll bring the tying run to the plate with nobody out in the last half of the 5th. And they've got the big guns loaded now. Perry, Pendleton about even with the bag at third. And here's a drive to right center. Willie McGee stumbled a little bit, and it's off the fence on the fly. 1 run is home, and that is all. If
Oh, he didn't make it.
They got him at the plate. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
See the runner on first. Thomas almost passed him. He had to hesitate. And then he makes a wide turn, and Russ Nixon picked up the next runner. Nixon, the coach, late blocks him off. This is why Cardinals are so good. Look at where Herr is, Bobby. He's right behind the infield, and that's a tribute. He knows the strength of Willie McGee's arm, so he did not have to go out into the outfield grass too far. Now, you can't fault Russ Nixon on that, the third base coach. He was waving him. In fact, he had to, because Thomas was going to run Deion James off third base.
Being all the help he can get in this inning and get some from his defense. Now, Murphy just gets a little piece of it, and Lake holds on to the tip for the strikeout.
And an outstanding off-speed curveball by Cox.
Griffey has walked twice.
Which could end up being the ball game. You don't know. Certainly would have gotten Cox out of the game, it appeared.
Cox walks Griffey for the 3rd time, and now for the 3rd time, Nettles will bat with the bases loaded.
You know, it isn't as if Nettles hasn't done a good job with the bases loaded. He's left 6 on, but he's going to have to make a quality pitch right here to Nettles.
It is wrapped, and Herr knocks it down, picks it up, throws him out.
Ball hard 3 times, hasn't he, Nettles?
Cox has had 9 lives. Nettles has left 9 runners. He's flied out twice. We told you he has 24 homers. The rest of his teammates have 25. Put it in perspective. Look at these other sluggers. They don't have nearly the percentage of their team's total. Of course, Bell has a Barfield among his teammates, and McGuire at Oakland has Reggie Jackson and Jose Canseco. Murphy has Ozzie Virgil, who has 20 home runs, and Ken Griffey, who has 10. There's no other Cardinal besides Clark, who's in double figures in homers.
There's now with Lindemann on the ball club, who is a power hitter, basically. And a little more help from the right side against left-handed pitching. Jim Acker has been very inconsistent this year. He's had trouble keeping the sinker ball down and the knuckle curve. Harper's done a decent job closing ball games.
Clark chases a bad pitch and goes down on strikes. Lefty hitter, he's slugging .370. Waves at it, and he's got the hat trick. He struck out 3 times.
Jim Acker not throwing hard, but perhaps Bruce Del Canton, the pitching coach, has asked him to back off so that the sinker ball has more movement. And you can see right there how it tailed away and had the downward action.
The telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball. 0-1 pitch, grounded to second. You'll listen to the following as we head for the commercial. Please do not reproduce or retransmit this in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Acker strikes out 2, gets the other on a grounder in a perfect 6th inning. Happy 4th of July. Huge crowd will greet them. Only the Dodgers in all of baseball have drawn more people than the St. Louis Cardinals, who are averaging about 36,500 a game.
Bruce Benedict, his father played in the Cardinal and Yankee organization. He and wife Kathleen. 6:19 a.m. this morning, so he probably spent the night at the hospital. They had their 3rd child, son Griffin David. A big one, too, over 10 pounds. Congratulations.
The 7th walk issued by Cox as Virgil is on to open the 6th.
But he's also had some good defense and a little sloppy base running to help him out. So all those things came together. Does that mean just because of this game it's the Cardinals' year? It's too early to say that.
Hubbard drills one to left center. Willie McGee goes back and has it at the edge of the track. Virgil back to first.
It's Paul Runge.
Every year since 1981, Runge has spent part of the year in Atlanta, part of the year at Richmond. Their
slider. Yep, right there.
Goodbye, Paul Runge. Be misinterpreted as saying that James is not a good player.
No.
He is a good player. But you're looking at, when healthy, a guy who can be a great player in Willie McGee. Liner to center. There's a hit for James, and Willie McGee will retrieve it. Throws in behind, and Virgil goes crawling back, but not in time.
Take him out of another inning. Oh, man. But there had to be a second baseman there alertly. McGee had to know what was going on. It was not a surprise to McGee and her. It's a play that they've done before. But you got to have the people in the proper position.
The Braves have messed up so many things fundamentally today as to make this a very unhappy 58th birthday for Chuck Tanner. You know, the point really is, Tony, as you said, even though Virgil deserved to be safe, why be in that spot? With 2 out, a sharply hit ball, you don't have any thought about going to third, trailing 3-0. Here's Nettles, and he throws Lindemann out.
Yeah, that's one of those plays, though, and it's interesting in this. It's one.
Lake is walked in line to first, wraps it to short. Andres Thomas got him.
Garber is 8. That leads the club. Dedman not overpowering. Tries to keep the ball down and sink it. Drops down. It's cool to do the opposition pitcher, isn't it?
Showing no mercy. They got to figure Cox has had more than his share of the breaks today. Perfect inning for Dedman out of the pen. Here's another edition of 7th inning stretch. From Don Mattingly, present great Yankee first baseman, to another all-time great who played that position in New York. And 48 years ago today, July 4th, 1939, Lou Gehrig's farewell.
I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. But I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for.
The Iron Horse lived but 2 years after that. In 1941, he passed away. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, more commonly known simply as Lou Gehrig's disease.
And Reggie Jackson, now with the Oakland A's and hitting the ball well, has been national chairman of that organization for quite a few years now. Contributes a lot of his time and efforts to it. In fact, that was the forerunner of the first old-timers game in baseball because of that ceremony. The Yankees did it. Now every team does it. Another successful one at old-timers day with all the veterans in RFK Stadium in Washington. Chuck Stevens' organization, all the money goes to that to help down and out former Major League ball players. It's quite an organization.
Morris.
All he did was come in and pinch hit and smoke a home run last night. The center field wall.
Andres Thomas loops one into center. Willie McGee. One out. Three for three, a pair of infield singles, a booming double off the center field fence. And they'll retire him this time. Tommy Hurd throws him out. On July 4th, 1976, our buddy Tim McCarver former Cardinal, now broadcaster with the Mets and ABC, lost credit for an apparent grand slammer when he passed Gary Maddox on the base pass. This is when he was with the Phils, went the grand slam.
And who says then catchers make the best managers because they're smarter? Let Tim do that.
Handled it. Will throw Murphy out. And so Dale's woes continue. He is now 4 for his last 36 and 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts today. Cox hangs on.
Anybody in the history of the game.
Put it all together, lead the Mets by 6, Expos by 6.5. Here's Andres Thomas. They'll throw Vince Coleman out. First time today they've retired him. He had singled twice and walked his last time up.
They think the record, Elias People and Seymour Seawoff from the Hurt Boys, is set of this ball game. Hit it over his head. He's got to play deeper, and the little loopers fall in.
So that's the first base runner against Dedman. Prior to that walk, the bullpen had done a very good job. Acker set them down in order in the 6th. Dedman in the game.
Well, just when this inning started, Ricky Horton got up, and you're looking at Griffey and Nettles, 2 left-handed hitters scheduled in the 8th. There's a chance Horton might come in if Cox really feels badly, and he looked like he was dragging the last couple of innings. He's gone.
You're right. He takes off. It's ball 4. He can slow down. Consecutive walks to Smith and Hurd.
For the pitching change with Keith Hernandez. And what do you look for? And Keith and he both agreed they just sit on fastballs.
Coming to Jack Clark. And he got him. So Clark is 0 for 4, and he struck out twice. He did his damage last night, though, as the Cards won 9-1. He had 2 hits, one of them a homer, and 4 RBIs. Not today.
Ozzie Virgil decoyed inside. He slid inside and
Hit the ball for once today.
Horton as a closer. Morrell is the big closer. He's pitching well lately after struggling a little bit early. Those power pitchers like Morrell and Righetti always seem to struggle for a few weeks in June. Once they get her in gear, they just wipe everybody out.
And he reaches for it and bloops it over Thomas's head, and he reaches up to grab it.
Dedman tried about everything to get McGee out. Finally threw a changeup, and he almost lofted it to left.
Nice play by Thomas. Cards leave 2. Ricky Horton now, as Danny Cox is finished. He lasted 7. And Horton will try and protect it for him.
You wonder how the rotation is going to fall for the All-Star game. Will it be Saberhagen against Mike Scott?
Horton comes in and fans Griffey, the first man he's faced. Griffey didn't give any of the fielders a chance today. Walked 3 times, and now he's struck out.
Atlanta, today's ball game, and they made a few mistakes last night, too.
With the bases loaded. And wouldn't you know it, there's the base hit with nobody on. Boy, it's tough when those RBI chances go a-wasting. And that's what happened to Nettles today. Freddie.
He's already on his way in with Virgil and Hubbard scheduled to hit now. Young kid, Trench Davis from the left side, Simmons, a switch hitter. So there's your score, 3-0. We'll be back after these messages as Morrell comes on.
As Worrell warms up, let's show you the play that typifies the Braves' frustration. Last of the 5th, 2 men on, nobody out. They trail 3-0. Gerald Perry hammers this pitch by Danny Cox over Willie McGee's head. It's off the wall on the fly. Deion James is at second. Andres Thomas at first. James held up thinking it might be caught. Thomas is almost climbing up his back. James comes home, and on an apparent double, he's cut down. McGee to Herr to Steve Lake. Perry is credited only with a single. Thomas winds up at third. Perry at second. Then Murphy struck out, and after Griffey walked, Nettles grounded out, and they got absolutely nothing out of it. Matty in the league rankings, which are led by Steve Bedrosian with 21, Lee Smith with 20, then Franco and Worrell with 16. There's a high fly ball, deep left center, way back, and Willie McGee! Oh, what a catch against the fence! Well, he has given us ample evidence that he wants to reclaim the Gold Glove in '87.
The sun, as you see, probably getting some verbal help from Vince Coleman. So he's made a great relay throw. Herr got the runner at home plate on his relay from center field. He's thrown behind a runner at second to get Virgil. Controversial play when the ball was dropped.
1-1 pitch to Hubbard. And here's a long one to left. Way back. Coleman on the track. Has it. Somebody in Timbuktu will pick up the paper and figure that Worrell came in and just quickly disposed of Virgil and Hubbard. Not so. They each came within a whisker of a homer. But it's been that kind of day for Atlanta.
You know, pitcher gets tired like Cox or like Worrell. He wasn't tired, but he obviously didn't have his great fastball. Hasselmacher on now for Atlanta. But you say, hey, keep the ball away with a little on it, and Willie's going to chase it down.
Pendleton here in the top half of the ninth. Game. John Morris is on deck. He'll get his first at-bat, having replaced Lindemann in right. Pendleton drills one, but Murphy is there.
Did not like the stuff of Worrell. I don't expect him to take Worrell out.
There. A couple years back. And it's well hit, but it's another chance for Murphy. So, Morris, who had made his lone at-bat count with a home run last night, hits it well, but is retired here.
A guy like Ricketts who can teach how to catch down there, he becomes very valuable.
Write a book. What a sad tale it will be. Here's the 1-2. Into left field softly, and it finds a home. It bounces away from Griffey a little bit, but he recovers it. 2-out single for Steve Lake. So now Worrell gets an at-bat.
Mets aren't finished yet, though.
Stadium, plus they would have been 9.5 back. So the Mets at least kept their hopes alive by winning 2 of 3. It was a slow roller. Nettles knows the pitcher is running, but Worrell made it very close. Nettles really took his time about fielding that ball, thinking that Worrell wouldn't be galloping down there, and Todd made it very, very close. Golden, Mazeroski, and Clemente. Ted Simmons will start it off as a pinch hitter, and he will whack one which Tommy Herr can't get to. They'll score it as a hit. So Simmons didn't go up looking. He swings at the first one.
List. Simmons has studied the game.
And it tipped his bat back into the glove of Lake for the strikeout.
Worrell found himself earlier in the year, Bob, just throwing too many fastballs down the middle. It looked like he tried to sink or run this a little bit, get the ground ball.
Oh. But he can reach. He'll bring the tying run to the plate, so they're not out of this one. And there you go. Ozzie can't get it. And Perry and Murphy will have a shot at it.
Managerial World Championships, great second baseman, a lot of base hits. Broadcasters, you never call a play too soon with Ozzie out there. You learned that last night, didn't you?
That little hesitation.
Oh man, you just.
Can they turn 2? Probably not. There's one. Ozzie throws to third, trying to catch Simmons napping. But Ted pulls in there ahead of the throw. In addition to his startling talent, he's one of the headiest players in the game. Well, now let's discuss how the Cardinals will pitch to Murphy.
Ball and Whitey Herzog and Mike Rourke finally felt, hey, this is the guy that should be a reliever. He can be a closer, he can be a middle reliever.
Zane Smith, who's long since departed, will be the loser.
Runner's gone.
And they're just going to let him have second base. So a small advantage to the Braves, maybe on a hopper up the middle that Murphy could beat to first. They won't be able to get the force at second.
Well,
2-1 pitch coming.
fastball.
And it's well hit to right center field. Morris is going to come over and make the catch. So Worrell, who wasn't terribly sharp, gets his 17th save. Danny Cox, who pitched shutout ball for 7 innings, though he was in and out of trouble, threw a lot of pitches, didn't have his sharp control, walked 7. Cox is the winner. His record is 8-3, and now The Cardinals have not lost a single game. They have led going to the 9th this year. They're 42-0 when leading after 8.
That leaves 13 on base, the Braves.
We'll be back. We'll be back to Atlanta to wrap things up in a minute.